Even in outer space, people are big polluters. Each dot on this map is an orbiting object, and most of it is orbital debris, says Boulder scientist Dan Baker.
This can range from little chips of paint all the way up to spent rocket bodies.
While that debris is a problem, nature creates a bigger hazard: killer electrons in a magnetized zone around the Earth called the Van Allen belts.
We've observed them to cause very significant problems for spacecraft that are operating in space.
Killer electrons also come from atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons.
Especially in the 1960s, there were nuclear explosions that put huge amounts of radiation into space that caused many satellites to die because of radiation damage. And if that were to happen today, we know that there are over 1,400 satellites operating in space around the Earth. And all of those could be subject to very severe consequences if we started pumping more radiation into space.
Global treaties ban nuclear weapons tests in the atmosphere. Baker worries anyway.
There are nations, for example, North Korea and others that may be thinking once again, and who may not be adherents to such treaties, that this might be an interesting way to mess with modern technology.
To keep killer electrons from messing with modern spacecraft, scientists put heavy armor on satellites that spend time in the Van Allen belts. Lower orbiting spacecraft don't need that, because just below the Van Allen belts, the killer electrons abruptly stop.
It's somewhat analogous to the shields up, Scotty, that Captain Kirk talked about in Star Trek.
Recently, Baker's teams figured out what stops those killer electrons. It's radio transmissions the military sends way down to submarines. It turns out those radio waves also go way up.
These waves act to sort of scatter and scrub the inner part of the Van Allen belts.
Baker says this radio pollution is beneficial. Berkeley, California space sciences researcher John Bonnell agrees.
It's a fascinating technology that could enable, in the future, us to explore, more of the solar system with people, with robots.
Bonnell adds this doesn't mean we're ready to make Star Trek-like space shields yet, but notes that new discoveries lead to new technologies. For VOA News, I'm Shelley Schlender in Boulder, Colorado.